Hello everyone, it's Talia. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute again since I last posted, and this is becoming a trend now because I'm unpredictable. But I have some very exciting reads to share with you. I had a mini vacation here in Turkey where we tried our best to stay safe in this pandemic, but we needed some sea breeze in our lives after a year of not doing much other than work and studies. But it was very, very refreshing, and we are all fine as a family. And I read a lot, like a lot. 6 books in 2 weeks, and then I read some more when I got back. So without further ado, I'll just jump into the books because it's gonna be kind of a longer video. Okay, the first book I got to around this vacation was And the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini. I mentioned this author when I was talking about some diverse reads that I wanted to do, and he's actually one of my favorite Middle Eastern authors, but this book was not as strong as I wanted it to be. His other books, The Kite Runner and A Thousand Splendid Suns, are so much more emotional. Some people don't like it because he literally just tugs at your emotional strings to make you cry, but I really enjoyed that aspect of his books, that raw emotion that he can induce. And this story centers around an adoption that goes on in Afghanistan around the wartime, and how people are scattered all around the world, how cultures clash, and then different people from all around the world are tied into these people's stories in the slightest, like the teeniest way, or they have a bigger role, but we keep skipping between different perspectives, and that's why I don't feel attached to any of the characters in this book. I gave it 2 stars. It could have been done better. I expected more from this author. I understand what he was trying to do because some of the story is unresolved, and these people don't have this magical reunion, which is essentially what happens in life sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time. So it was a more realistic story in that sense, but I didn't want to read a realistic story all that much. So I started my reads with a kind of disappointing read. I did enjoy it. Okay, this book. Oh my god. The Witch of Portobello by Paulo Coelho. I gave this 5 stars. Please go read it because I read it in a very critical point in life. I was going through some emotional stuff, and I feel like this book helped me start that process where I thought about how I actually feel. Rather than just trying to deal with my emotions, I wanted to understand them first, and I feel like this book gave me so much inspiration on being oneself, finding oneself, and being okay with it, and just losing ourselves in the flow of life. This book is also told by very different accounts. We rarely get the account of one person twice, but it's executed in a very, very professional way, and I loved it. I don't necessarily need a single POV to feel connected to a character, but in this book we follow Athena, or Shireen Khalil. Athena is the name she chose for herself, and she is a young woman that goes on a journey of self-discovery. She quits college, marries, has a baby, gets a divorce, travels around the world, learns different skills, and through dance, she finds this spiritual connection with the mother, or the god that she believes in, and the spiritual connection kind of guides her through what she needs to do to find her true self, and she touches so many people's lives. being like a spiritual guide to about being unapologetic for what you are, who you want to be, and what you want to do with your life. I found this thought to be very liberating, and it's okay to not know what we're gonna become. It's okay to not know what we are right now. It's a journey, and I hate that. It's a journey. Welcome to my life journey. But like, it is true. We never stop living, so we're not gonna stop at a certain identification to be like, yes, this is who I am, this is what I am, I'll just live through life being this. It doesn't work that way, and this book touched my soul. Just go read it, go read it. Next up, we have a fairy tale. I read Peter Pan. Murphy Napier may have had a hand in this because she talks about this book so much, and she loves this book. I think it's her favorite book, and I trust her opinion on books, so I gave it a shot, but this was just a 3-star read for me, honestly. I like the story. It's very nostalgic, how Peter Pan lives on this island where children don't grow old, but like, some of the stuff, I know this is an old story, but how women are portrayed to have a certain role in families, it made me cringe still, even knowing it was a very old story. And the writing style of J.M. Barrie is just not agreeable with me. I could read this to a child, and maybe the out loud narration would make this more whimsical, but reading it's like reading a fairy tale, and I think I don't like reading fairy tales all that much, but it was still like a magical and to some extent innocent story, so it was a nice addition to my summer reads. And then we go into Kindle books. I read Stormfront by Jim Butcher, which is the first book in the Dresden Files series, where this wizard detective that lives in Chicago solves crimes and helps the police, but also is like a vigilante, like a consultant for the police. I really enjoyed the urban fantasy setting. I usually don't enjoy... I'm at a point where I enjoy high fantasy more, where the fantasy world doesn't have anything to do with our world. But this one gave low fantasy a nice pick-me-up for me. I gave this a 4 stars because it was a fun read, and the creatures like vampires and demons, and there's a whole plethora of creatures to come, I know. They were interesting. I just don't know how I feel about Harry Dresden as a character yet, because some of his thoughts about certain women that crosses paths with him, I just, like, whenever you see a female, you don't have to dream about having sex with them. Just putting it out there, just don't try to find one, like, that quality that draws you in, always, and always mention it to your reader. I don't know. It was still fun. He is very sarcastic and funny at times, but we'll see. I think I'll give it like 2 or 3 more books, because I know that we only see his POV, so if I get too frustrated with it, I'll just stop reading. Won't cost me much. Okay, we have The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. Have I mentioned that I loved Brandon Sanderson? I love the man, and I love the Mistborn series. The story picks up right after the big battle. Not right after, but like the aftermath of the big battle of the first book, and the consequences are dire. People are still suffering, and like, it's very satisfying to see that one battle doesn't solve anything in a world, but in this one, our crew has a very different set of challenges. There is a fear of some betrayal going on, and it's just, I can't fathom how much the stakes are raised in this book. It's a 4.5, just because I'm in love with the first book, and I'm in love with the first book. That's all I'm gonna say. And Vin is growing stronger and stronger, and I'm just so excited to see where she's gonna go, 'cause so freaking clever, so ruthless, and becoming her own. I love it. Okay, this one I needed to read. I eventually read it, and I just... Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This romance, I did not read many romance books in the past year. Boy, why haven't I? Like, oh my god. Redford Morgan, can you please enter my life at some point, because my heart is in pieces. This is like a very cute but real and heartbreaking and also heartwarming romance that I really needed in between like fantasy reads that I had going on. And I just... Okay, Chloe Brown has a life-threatening situation, and right after that she makes a list, Get a Life Chloe Brown list, where she lists stuff that she wants to do that she didn't dare do before, but she's like, life is short, I gotta go live. And Redford Morgan is the guy that ends up helping her out with fulfilling this list. And I just... their interactions and how they rub each other off, and like how cute they are together, just... Okay. I can't explain to you how much I love these characters, how much I love this story, and just go read it. Please trust me. I read it in one day, and it's just like, oh, so cute, okay? Okay. Oh, 5 stars, by the way. Those are all the books that I read while on vacation, and when I came back home, I finished The Thief's Daughter by Jeff Wheeler, which is the second book in the Queen's Poisoner. I don't know the series name, but The Queen's Poisoner is the first book, and The Thief's Daughter is the second book, where we follow Owen, who is a young duke in this made-up kingdom. And the first book, he was a very young boy, like 5 years old, I want to say, but maybe older than that. But we follow him try to maneuver in like the court politics and the magical things that are going on in the kingdom. And then in this book, he is a teenager. There is some romance. There is more of a war stratagem rather than court politics, because he is out fighting battles now. And I just find these books to be very refreshing as a YA fantasy, because the romance is so subtle. I don't want to say subtle, but like the plot is just around the mysteries and the strategy and the schemes that are going on, which I find really interesting. The magic system is based off of a magical fountain, where this fountain is set to grant some people powers. Once they turn like 11 or 12, they manifest those powers, and they can be like clairvoyant, or they can change disguises very quickly, and just like that is the extent of the fantasy portion, and it's more of like a medieval war and strategy book, I guess. But it's fun. I liked seeing how Owen grew up. I think I gave this one a 4 stars as well. But this might be actually like a 3.5, because the way that some conflicts were resolved did not satisfy me enough, so I just... yeah, 3.5. It was a good read. We moved on. This is kind of embarrassing. Right after I finished The Thief's Daughter, I wanted something with romance. And I picked up The Cruel Prince. Okay. I hated it at first. Like the first half of this book, I hated the narration, I hated the prose. Holly Black is I liked her style, I grew into her style, but the first person POV where we follow this girl that was raised, a human girl that was raised in the fairy world and is being treated very cruelly by classmates and all the people of the Fae because she is inferior. I liked where the story went, and the first book I actually enjoyed more than the second book. Okay, full disclosure, there are 3 books. This is a trilogy, and I finished the whole thing in 2 days. So I guess I liked it enough that I kept on reading because it's very, the prose is very, I don't know, personal and not flowery, but a little too direct. And the character of Jude was a little hard to get into because she seems kind of conceited at first, honestly, but then you get to know her a little bit more, and then that kind of dissolves into staying strong in this very terrifying world. But of course there is a romance, there is a love interest, and some people say it's a very like abusive and problematic representation of relationships or like friendships in general. I would agree, but I just couldn't stop reading about it, so I really liked it still. Jude is raised by a warrior, like General Faye, where she goes to school with the princes and the dukes and like the high Fae in this world, due to that connection to the general's family, and she is tormented so badly, but she craves power. She wants to become a knight, but then other opportunities present themselves, and then she is sucked into the world of the Fae, and the more power she gets, the more hungry she is for power, but then the love interest also, like, is a very twisted and hard to understand character at first, but then you're like, okay, you're gonna get together already. And then in The Wicked King, okay, let's see. The Cruel Prince, let's say 4 stars. Wicked King, 3.5. But then the third book, I really, really, really loved. Like the way every stake was raised, but then Holly Black just raised them a little more, and I was like, just what's gonna happen? And then things resolved in a very satisfying way, I feel like. I don't know, I really liked this trilogy, and I didn't expect to like it because enemies to lovers is a very hard trope to pull off, in my opinion. I feel like Holly Black did stagger a little bit from time to time with it, but I really liked that it wasn't, the enemies part wasn't just ended like that. I'm just gonna say that. There is enough page time to develop the hatred and the mixed emotions between the characters, which I really liked. The one thing next to the prose that stuck out to me is like how this whole other kingdom is concealed from the mortal world, and like you're just thrown into it. They expect you to know everything, but then like Jude does explain some stuff in the world, but it took me a while to get into the mindset of, okay, there are magical fairy islands and they live there and they ride on horses across the water. Okay then. But once I got used to it, it was such a fun ride. Man, I like some romance in my fantasies. What can I say? It was done well. Okay, that was it for my recent reads. I hope you liked this video. Let me know if you read any of the books that I mentioned, or just let me know any thoughts about them at all. And if you liked it, just give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!